everybody. Welcome back to Reaper Pro Tips with me, your host and Disembodied Hands, Quinty, Disembodied Beard, John, and, I don't know, squirrels in my backyard, I guess. Sorry for the late start. Got distracted this morning. Had to rush. But I'm here now. Yay. Yay, here. Oh, I'm jealous of ground venison. I used to get that when I was in Wisconsin, but I don't really have a source for it out here. The only place I can get it is I can get it frozen, New Zealand venison, if I go to the market. But that's all right. I use it for chili every once in a while. Oh, all you people flaunting your venison. Oh no, not time to gain it back. Come on, Kodiak. You can do better than that. I know you can. Funny. So, people who are on my my Patreon and who are at the $10 level or higher, I have yesterday I finished, I've got 2 pairs of glasses, that figures. Yesterday I finished my motivation PDF, and it's like a whopping 11-page PDF. So you guys can expect that later today. I'm doing editing and proofreading on it now. But it's quite a big monster, and it's I think I'm gonna switch where my water is. And yeah, I'm pretty proud of it actually. I think it's good. It's full of instances from my past and tips for executing and getting around blocks. It's pretty much like I might expand on it a bit, but for the painting book, this would be like the mindset section. There are definitely still things I could talk about, but I also didn't want to sit there and put a 20-page PDF out and then never have anything else to talk about. So yeah, but anyway, I wanted to let you know that was coming. I'm a little late this month because I did have that 4 days with my folks. So catching up a little bit, but everything should get to you by the end of the month. And thanks to Moonlight Minis, who may or may not be here yet, I got my package from Christine, along with presents. She gave me presents. I'm so excited about my presents. Let's see, we're going to work on wings today, I think. I want to start really dark. Let's start with some black and brown. Instead of my russet, usually I'll do a darker wings. A live happy deer. Yay! Good, Kerniko. I'm glad you have a live happy deer. I like watching deer. Let's get this. I moved my mic, and so now I feel like I have to move everything else. It's like my workspace here is condensing. Actually, I can move a bunch of these brushes that I don't really use right now. Exiling you, brushes. Exiling you. They'll just go straight down. If I need them, they'll come back. Do I really need these other guys? No, not really. We'll just exile everybody except the 2, my old brush, my brand new brush, and my mixing brush. We'll exile everyone else. That sounds great. There we go. Perfect. Just felt like I needed to free up some space here and switch things up a little bit. There we go. Perfect. Oh, because you took that long walk, Kerniko? Is that it? Did the long walk put paid to you? Yeah, that's how it was in Wisconsin, too. Some years the deer would just get the population boom, but then they would come to the winter, getting close to winter, and they'd start starving, and that was never a good thing. So, that said, both mindsets are fine for the world. Those of us who like to eat Bambi are fine, and Kuroniko, who prefers to watch Bambi happily still being, alive, are also fine. Takes both kinds. Of course, because I'm painting big. So I ordered a bigger version of one of Christine's models, and she actually also printed two slightly smaller versions in her normal print material because she knows I really love her normal print material. So, and I actually have to say she's right. Like the bigger the versions that in the normal print material that are slightly smaller, because originally she's got a bunch of this is what she has on Etsy. She's got the 2-inch base version of the Beauty and the Beast princess, which I wanted. I ordered. Right? So that's in the more of a classical shiny resin, right? But then she also, because she's a queen, totally printed me a slightly smaller version in the regular resin, and this I really love. So if you have a 3D printer, printing at, and this is what I had wanted to do for myself, but we just ran out of time. Printing, I think this is about 45, or is it 50? It's actually higher. Wow, scale creep for me. So it's a 60 millimeter model. Just short of 60, I think, or just at 60. So you can take Christine's work and you can print it up to about 60 mil. And have it look really, really good. And then the bigger ones, like you start to notice stuff like the eyebrows are over exaggerated, but they're still perfectly paintable. And what I like about the big stuff, here's the difference, right? So this big one is probably about 100 millimeter. Let's see. So the one that, if you ever go to her Etsy and you order something, it's about an 80 millimeter. Okay. So I always tell you guys that around 75 mil is when things start to cast normal shadows. You can kind of see that in the book and all the detailing. So you paint it slightly different, but both of them are perfectly feasible. Like it's actually really impressive that she can scale her work up to 80 millimeter and have it still look good. Like there's just a couple of things you're like, okay, that's a little out of scale, but yeah, you do. You need to, Shadow Raven. You need a to-do list. But yeah, so I really love this little 40 mil or 60 mil version. 60. My brain is totally scale crept. I'm like, that's got to be 40 millimeter, and no, it's 60. It's like I have no concept. I have no concept anymore of what 45 millimeters look like because all of our models are like almost 40 millimeters. What used to be 28 is like 40. Oh, and I didn't just get that one because she was a really nice lady, and she sent me the Little Mermaid one too. So this is a water elemental sorceress interpretation of Ariel from The Little Mermaid. It's Ira. I mentioned that I really loved this one, but I decided to be restrained, so she sent me a copy anyway, because she's really that cool. So yeah, so looking forward to painting these ones. Probably, I ordered the Belle, or the Colette, to paint for ReaperCon. So, and then I also got the my Paint Along Mini, my new Paint Along Mini. You know, I love... Well, it's a water weird, right? The eel is a water elemental. And I always loved water weirds. It's a little... So you can see the watery thing. And that's why it looks like a scarf. But it's adorable. So... But yeah. The Belle, the Colette is one that I feel like is a better... So why would I think this? Should we just talk about what makes a better competition mini, in my opinion? So, what makes a better competition mini for Anne? Well, let's see. When you are looking at something that is a better competition mini than another one, and you're trying to figure out, because the choice of miniature matters. It absolutely matters. And what you should ask yourself is, what's your superpower? Well, first of all, okay, number one priority Get a model that's clean, has no mucky bits or other pieces of the sculpt that are going to give you trouble. So many people choose a model because they just like the attitude of the model or the character, but when they actually get to paint it, they discover that the sculpt just isn't that great. It's got parts that are not smooth, or it's got a lot of just random kind of weird stuff that they don't know what it is. Things like that. The face isn't as good as they thought. You need to really look at the model beforehand to discover if it's got any flaws like that, because anything that's going to fight you on the model is going to frustrate you and be one more block or barrier against you finishing it to a top level. So that's the first thing, but we don't have to worry about that because this is Christine and she doesn't sculpt like she's not a noob. So so her models are tight. All of the details are very well done. Everything is smooth. Other than some 3D printer relics that I have to fill in. The faces are good, you got to then ask yourself, okay, what am I good at? That's your next question for a miniatures painting competition. What are you good at? And for me, like if you were good at blending and you were good at like blue, maybe you'd choose Ira, because she's got that really pretty dress. She's got the water weird. You could even maybe, if you were good at lighting, maybe you would do a lighting effect, with the snake. I don't know, maybe you would. So if you were good at that, maybe you would choose this one. But my free card is freehand. And I know I want to do some freehand. So essentially, I'm looking at the back of this coat going, I can do something with this model. And on the front, she has a bit of a front piping down the front of her pants, which also, says I could do striped pants or something like that. And she's got a book, so I can do freehand in that. So essentially, because my superpower is freehand and blending, all these big surfaces and opportunities for freehand and detailing and texture are right up my wheelhouse. So for me, this is the right model, but not for everybody. Yeah, it is. This is my favorite. This is the one I ordered. Actually, she sent me two scales, Laura, because she's nice. Kerniko, you can contact her. She said that essentially when people order from overseas, she just likes to work with them. You might have to pay extra shipping, just whatever she has to pay, but you could totally do it. I don't think but you need to contact her, like not just go through the website, because I don't think the website will let you do it. But that's what Shadow Raven is doing. He's in Canada, and she told me that I asked her about that because of my Patreon thing, doing the model, one of her models for my Patreon paint along, which starts pretty much tomorrow, as soon as I get the video shot. But she'll work with you. No promises that the shipping won't be more expensive, but. But yeah, so, no, you're painting superpower, Shadow Raven. Everybody's got, even if it isn't superpower level yet, everybody's good at something. Maybe you're good at faces, maybe you're good at hair, maybe you're good at blends, maybe you're good at really dramatic light and shadow, maybe you're good at, if you're David, you've got light as a superpower, because he's totally a dork and, we're jealous. If you're me, you've got color and freehand as a superpower. Color was always my superpower from when I was a little kid. I just always loved colors. I loved playing with them. And so that became my superpower. Where did my knife go? Oh, there it is. I put everything away and then promptly regretted it. Yeah, I mean, and I don't know how much it actually costs to ship, but she said if you drop her a note, just tell her you're on my stream. Tell her who you are. See what they can do. And maybe they won't be able to do much, or maybe they can, but it doesn't hurt to ask. Though if I were you, doing that, and knowing that the shipping would be more, I'd probably save up, and so you could order several things. But yeah. Yeah, international shipping is just expensive now, so. Yeah, I mean, I used to talk at Paint Club regularly about competition painting and about the factors that can enhance or limit your success. And the choice of model is the absolute first priority. People aren't critical enough about the model they choose. They just are like, oh, it's cool. But then, yeah, like I said, they don't see the flaws in it. Only $20. Wow, Pernico. Yeah. But that's, I mean, shipping has just gone really high. All right, I'm going to get some black and brown laid out, and we're going to block in her wings while we're talking. I need to do more highlights on her skin too, but I want to get some dark on this model. Either that, Kerniko, or you could give in and get that 3D printer. I'm surprised you don't have any friends with 3D printers, but I guess they're not that common. Honestly, you just have to paint. It'll become obvious, seriously. Like, just paint. Because as you paint, you're going to notice what subjects you like painting. Or you're going to notice, you know, somebody outside of you is going to say, oh, I love the colors on your pieces. Or, oh, wow, I really like the blending you did there, right? People are going to talk to you about your work when you show it off. And you can, like, you know, either you should always question it a little bit. Because, you know, it might not feel true to you. Like, maybe people love your colors, but you don't feel confident in color at all. So then you're like, all right, well, maybe I have a superpower here, but I'm not confident enough in it. In which case, again, it's more painting. It's like style. Like, I had to paint a lot of minis, and, like, there was a day when I was just walking back to the table after I had taken a break from my painting, and we were at Paint Club. And I just walked back to the table, and I looked at, like, the 4 or 5 models I had there, and I was like, whoa, I have a style. Because they all looked similar, like, I could see the style. But up until that point, it had never occurred to me that I had one. And it's just because I had been painting so much. So, I mean, it comes out because David, and you can totally manufacture a style. David got obsessed with lighting, and he really started to push himself to do lighting on figures. And because he did, and he paints a lot, he evolved into that, and where now it's instinct. Now he's got a better grasp of light than anybody because he set out to get that grasp of light, right? For me, in freehand, I started out as a 2D artist. I really liked tiny stuff, and I just adapted and worked on my freehand until I became better at it, you know. And then it became a trump card. Then it became my superpower, right? I can do a lot with freehand. The wings I always paint classic Sophie Pendrake. I leave it to other people to diverge, but whenever I paint Sophie, especially a model that might be going into the Reaper gallery, I use classic Sophie colors. So the wings are always brown for Sophie. I'm going to go with a darker brown this time because I feel like she's in a dim setting because she's got a lantern. I haven't necessarily painted her that way. I could still go that way if I really wanted to, but I'm just not worried about that right now. But I'm going to start with a shade darker. Usually I start russet brown. I'm going to start black and brown this time. And you know what? I think I want one of my brushes that I threw off to the side here. 1 second. 1 second while I reclaim my Reaper Zero. Where are you? Where are you, Reaper Zero? There. It's a good working brush. Oh, we need a group printer talk, and you were deemed the most suitable person. Yeah, the thing is you'd have to put it in, like, in your greenhouse or in, like, in your garage and only use it for half the year, right? That's the thing. Or you could get, like, a space heater, I suppose. But if your garage is really spider infested, maybe it would set them on fire. I don't know. All right, so let's get... I'm going to just hold these. It's not ideal. Where is my bubble wrap? 1 second. I want a bubble wrap. It might make them bigger. I have no idea. But anyway. Sounds like your group's at a stalemate then. So I've got my paint thin down about 4:1. I'm using a Reaper Zero. It's a big enough brush to carry enough paint for base coating, but it's got a good tip. So I can get this stuff done. But yeah, I mean, so as you paint, if you want to develop a superpower, ask yourself what superpower you would really want to develop. And then I would just recommend, depending on your level, if you're not really intermediate level yet, then I would definitely finish your foundational training. Just like with any art form, even back to the Middle Ages, it's always worthwhile developing all your fundamentals first and then deciding how you're going to specialize. It's just like doctors, right? You go through basic medical school and then you go into what your specialty is going to be. Though as you go through those basic technique things, you're going to notice that you tend to pick certain models, right? And that's where you start to that's when you burn down the garage and rebuild. I think spiders are like death and taxes. They're just kind of inevitable in a certain time of year. Kiki, Oh, I think I've got some flash here. Hold on. Kiki's decided that spiders require barking. Okay, so I think there's just a little bit of plastic in here that I didn't realize was here, that I don't think necessarily belongs here. So I'm going to take my knife and just kind of cut out a little wedge of it. It's right at the edge of that, between the lantern and the wing. There we go. That's better. Kiki doesn't need any encouragement. But yeah, so I've known people who, got just a superpower for painting sexy female models, and Jennifer Haley's superpower was smooth blending, There are a couple other people with the smooth blending superpower. And then there are people like Kirill with the texture superpower. So as you, and the superpower can be subject oriented, like dragons for Kuro. I'm just going to paint this whole thing dark, even though I know there's a claw on the end of this wing. I'm just going to do it all dark. I'll come back and pick up the claw later. So there are definitely people with the dragons and monsters superpower. But I mean, they got that because they love those things and they painted them over and over. Yeah, and the ability to analyze your work better is also one, right, Zachariah? Because if you can self-edit, if you can self-analyze, right, then you can essentially troubleshoot your work and refine it easier. The ability to step outside of yourself and get an objective view of your work can't be underestimated. And some people have a basing superpower. Michael Proctor does. He has color and basing. I think Rhonda is expanding her superpower set because she's doing so much 2D. When you do some 2D art, it can also inform your painting. But again, these are all choices that you make because you're drawn to them. Your superpower evolves out of a style or a subject matter or a technique that you're really interested in and you really end up loving. So the best thing you can do is to paint as many different types of things in as many different ways and as many different colors as you can. And work on your technique so that you can do anything you want. Once you master layering, for example, then the door is open. You can do anything you freaking want in the world. Then it's all mindset. It's all just thinking. Everything left is a conceptual technique. How do I paint light? How do I paint metal? How do I paint, how do I give the impression this model's in dim lighting, that kind of thing. That's a color thing, actually, but it's still concepts. It's not mechanical techniques. So master your mechanicals, and pretty much then the sky is the limit. Like, you can go anywhere. Cute, Korniko. But yeah, it's sometimes your superpower comes naturally, like for me, color, but the only reason it feels like it's natural is because I loved color as a kid and I messed around with it a ton. Alright. If I'm going to hold this, I don't really need the wrap anymore. Decided to just balance myself. And just take your time when you're doing these tiny little struts. Just little brush strokes. Keep them precise. Keep them loose. You can always touch up if you accidentally blorf. Yeah, but your superpower evolves and takes time. And sometimes you get more than one superpower. Like I said, Michael Proctor has 2. I've got 2. Most top level painters develop more than one thing they're good at. Because essentially we've spent so many years in the hobby that we find our first superpower and then we start working on a second. Like, I used to be known for smooth blending. I've let that fall by the wayside a bit, though I could still do it, but it would take so much time. It's a very lengthy process. So I don't know that I'm as patient with it as I used to be. But I didn't have the freehand chops back then. Smooth blending was more my thing. And a basing. I was known for basing at one point too. You just dodge around and you try different stuff. But yeah, Rhonda's an excellent example of how you can, try to kind of figure out your new superpowers, right? She's just doing a lot of art, a lot of different 2D canvas, taking classes, watching videos. She's working on, any number of things, from a better mastery of color or to like textures and lighting. And whatever, maybe she gravitates toward a particular one of those and starts using it a lot of her miniatures. And then she becomes known for that. Yeah, animals are... I don't know that they're my superpower, but I do love painting them. I guess they are a superpower somewhat. But I don't paint them a lot, right? But they are something that I've painted or I've done in 2D, right? I've done that in color pencil a lot. A lot of animals like that. So that was another case where 2D art would inform what I am good at. Right. I like naturalism. I cannot lie. I know it doesn't make the downside of being a naturalist, or more of one than a lot of other painters, is that my stuff is not as punchy as Lucas, right? It does not walk up and sock you in the mouth. It has its own beauty in a different way, but some people are just not going to ever appreciate that, and that's true of anything you do. Because we're producing something that's artistic and creative, not everybody will like our stuff, and that's okay. It's like Mom and I were walking through that art show, and Mom was like, I wonder, she's like, I really wish I could ask one of these guys, how much do you actually make? Do you actually make enough to rationalize being here for 3 months, right? Not being anywhere else. And I'm like, well, it all depends, because you're gonna have the people that walk right by you every day that just your art is not for them. But then you're gonna have the people like us that maybe we stop and we chat with you, but we're not gonna buy anything, or maybe we would, but we're very picky. And then you're gonna have the people like us, but that actually do fall in love with something and buy it, right? So what percentage of the world is that? And as a miniature painter, you should keep that same dynamic in mind, right? You're going to have a lot of people in the miniatures world who maybe, are like, oh, that's cool, but it leaves them cold, right? Your work just isn't for them. And then you're going to have the people who really admire your work, and then you're going to have the people who are just diehard fans of your work, who think that your style is the style for them, they love it. Um, so it's best not to worry about the people who are not, for me, it's not worth worrying about the people who aren't into my naturalistic style or who think that it's inferior. All I care about are the people who like think it's cool or really love it. See, Kuro, you just need to talk Twisted Oma into sending you a care package of all the minis that she doesn't think she has time to paint herself. I was just thinking I need to sell some of my stuff last night. I said that to David. Maybe I need to get on eBay or offer it for my patrons. I'll probably offer it through the Patreon first. Like, there's just some models that I had that. And this happened right before I moved too, right? I trimmed my collection down. I gave away and sold a lot of stuff to paint clubbers. But right now I feel like I've acquired more since I started living with David. Because, when he buys something from X company, he's always like, do you need anything from X company? And I'm like, well. So I feel like I've got, when I went through my model boxes the other day, I felt like there's stuff in here that I used to really be into that I'm not really into anymore, and I'd rather find it a new home. And I don't care if I don't make back my original investment. So I'm very much a believer in if I have a cool model, but I know that I'm not going to get into painting it, like I can just look at it and feel that its time for me has passed. I'm very much into giving that to someone or selling it to someone who will love it and paint it. I'm past the point where I'm going to like build up vast quantities of models that I won't paint. Unless I start painting much faster than I am now, which is a struggle, and I talk about it a little in the motivation PDF. But I'm learning to take a lot of cues from my love, from David, because I admire the way he goes at mini painting. It's like Zen and the Tao of David in mini painting. So this is very dark. You can see it's a much darker start for Sophie's wings than we usually do. Sadly, the other Sophie I did is with Ron, so we can't directly compare. But it is a very dark framework. So I wanted to have something dark on the model so I could really assess the skin tones and how much farther I needed to go. Yeah, I will, Kodiak. I'll pretty much just include the entire Patreon, even the free members. I'll make a public post about it. Say I'm going to start offering some stuff for sale. It'll just be I'll put up what I'd like for it. You can contact me. Maybe we'll have a little silent auction, but I'll probably cap it. Like I don't want anything to go like way too expensive. Some of the stuff I have is rare or out of print, so. But I still like to. I would rather have it go to a good home than to have like it go way too high for people to even consider who might otherwise love to paint it. We'll see. I'll think about how to do it. I'll talk to people, see what they think might be a good way to do it. But yeah, like I've got the bigger Lord of the Rings figures from Night Models, and there was definitely a time. I've got Aragorn and Boromir. There was definitely a time when I wanted to paint those. They're actually, unlike a lot of Night Model stuff, they're really good. But I think their time for me has passed. Back when I was watching the Lord of the Rings all the time, which I would regularly use it for background, I would get inspired to paint those suckers. Because it was great because you'd look at the movie and use it for a reference. But I don't know, next to everything else that I have right now, I don't know that I have the oomph to paint them anymore. And those are out of print. Those are no longer available. So yeah, I've got a bunch of stuff. And then some resin, a lot of resin. I'll have to look through it, see what I'm willing to part with. have some Dark Sword dragons. The metal ones and the... I don't know that I have any resin. Maybe I have some combined metal resin ones. But I don't know that I'd get to those either. I have a lot of Dark Sword stuff that I got from Jim when I was painting for him, and which was very generous of him, but... Okay, we gotta look carefully to make sure we're not like covering up any skin color here. I do have a little tiny bit that I can paint in there. There we go. Hey, Dogfather. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, unlike, I just came to the conclusion a while ago that I realized that if I get too much stuff, I feel overwhelmed by it. And I solve that most of the time by having my boxes put away in the closet. But when the closet starts getting too big, too full, then I'm like, all right, this is getting out of hand. I at least hold myself to one closet. One half of one closet. Technically, David has the other half. But yeah, I've got that kind of brain where if there's just too much, I'll just freeze and I'll start avoiding painting. It's the way my brain runs. This motivation PDF has a lot of stuff, a lot of different challenges that I've hit over the years in it. It's not a walk-in closet. It is a normal closet, but it's double wide. It's the closet of the master bedroom. The hobby room next door used to be the master bedroom until they did the remodel, and now the master bedroom is the one that's our master bedroom. It's on the other end of the house, but it's a decent sized closet. But I downsized my collection so much before I moved because I just didn't have room. Did not have room. I knew I was moving into a tiny apartment in the San Francisco Bay Area with David, and I was like, until we got, that was before we got the house, and I knew I wouldn't have a lot of room. So I cut my collection pretty mercilessly. And you know what? I don't miss it. People who took those things, like, now they have the pleasure of painting them, and that's fine. I'm good with that. It makes me happy. At least they have the chance to get some paint on them. All right, I'm gonna look real carefully at the inside there. All right, I can. With the place where the inner and outer wing kind of meet, I have to be careful to make sure that that's good. Oh. 2 models. Well, that's where comparisonitis comes in, and you should just shut that one down. Shut the door in that one's face. Dogfather, just paint him. Hey, Blue 9. Good afternoon. I've been to Toronto. That was where the Canadian Golden Demon was when I went in 2002, where Jennifer and I both won our second... I won my second Golden Demon. I don't remember if it was her second, or if it was more, if she had more at that point. I think she had more. I really enjoyed Toronto. We were she was in Chicago and I was in Wisconsin at the time, so it wasn't a very long drive. It was a real nice trip. It was I think it was Jen's and I's only road trip together. It was good though. I was pretty poor in those days, so I did not have a budget. But I'll remember that if I get back up there. All right, we've solid base coat on this. Sit, stay, dry. All right, let's get our colors. Yeah, comparisonitis is evil. I mean, it's just your brain throwing up blocks. You know, it's one of the things I talk about. It comes under competition, although it's not, people who get comparisonitis are often not competitive, but it's the same kind of thing. It's the validation and like wanting to feel like you're good at something and then getting intimidated because somebody else is so much better than you and you doubt you'll ever be that good and why bother, and it's the way your brain kind of feeds on that cycle. It's a fear cycle. It also can come from if you feel pressure. Like, it creates pressure, right? And a lot of us, when we feel pressure, that's when our motivation shuts down. We nope out, essentially. There are certain brain types that nope out when pressure enters the picture. I have two of the strengths that nope the minute pressure enters the picture. So I have to keep everything relaxed and easy if I want to be productive. And by easy, I don't mean, like easy to just sit down and do whatever. I don't mean effortless when I say easy, but more like easygoing. Not put too much pressure on myself. All right, let's get some russet brown. And normally I mix that with shield brown or driftwood. Let's use driftwood today. That's pretty cool blue now. Yeah, see, and that kind of thing, and I'm just as bad at times. Like, it's a weird thing with me though. It's kind of why I don't like actually get inspired by watching other people paint. So like, if somebody else is painting something, I would rather paint something completely different to totally like not get the inevitable comparisons. Whether I get to be like compared favorably or unfavorably, or it's not a competition thing, because I know how that feels, but it's almost an anti-competition thing. I always like to. It's like in D&D. If somebody else is playing the cleric, I will never play the cleric. It's like that. So if somebody else is painting this particular dragon that I know, I will not touch that dragon until long after they have finished painting it. And then I will do a version of my own that has nothing to do with what they did. So it can come from several places. But if it's just fear that you won't measure up, that's a very real block. It's a mental block. And the thing to realize is that nobody cares. Like your brain is afraid, and it's like, oh no, we can't go there, there's a lion. And really it's not, because nobody really cares. Like, they'll care if you paint it. Like, they'll look at your paint job and go, oh cool, right? But it doesn't matter if you don't paint as well as somebody else. Who cares? Why are you painting? This is what this PDF I just finished talks about. Get back to your why. Why do you paint? Do you paint because creativity makes you feel good and it helps you relax? Then it doesn't matter two figs what that person over there is doing. Go back to your why. Remember that your why is about you and your emotional health, and just ignore that person. And picture them over at another table in another room painting, and then close that door in your head and just go back to what you're doing. And it takes practice to do that sometimes, but it's doable. Hey there, Corvus. Yeah, talking a bit. Oh, we're painting a Sophie and talking a bit. I like to talk about. I just finished a big PDF on motivation for my Patreon, so I'm chatting a bit about that. But yeah, comparisonitis is definitely a curse that can break you down a bit, and it's one a lot of us suffer from. And when I was like a newer painter, I also suffered from it. Because a part of me at that point in my life was more competitive, and it was definitely like a thing. And I do talk about it in the PDF, but at some point it has to be just you and the mini, and that's the most relaxing way to do it. And my why these days about painting minis is about relaxing and about producing something that I'm happy with, right? Oh, I missed a spot. Oh no, I missed a spot. Boop, boop, boop. There we go. Let's get that spot filled in. Now we can go and start to highlight. So the brown that I made is a mixture of driftwood and russet. So a little bit lighter than I would have gone if I was base coating. There it is right there. You can see the big difference between these two. Yeah, look out for that one though, Zachariah, because sometimes if we phrase our why shouldn't necessarily be, and this depends, right? And if it works for you, it works for you. But I find that my why is more effective if it's about me, like if it's personal, if it's very specific. So saying like it's for, you know, the love of art is great because that can be a reason. But I think that if it's more like, you know, it's me expressing my love of art and really feeling happy to create, like personally feeling happy to create. That's more of a why. It has to be the personal why is a very personal thing, is what I guess I'm trying to say. So although like for me, you know that one of my motivations is spreading the love of mini painting everywhere. Yes, absolutely. But that isn't always an effective motivator if I'm feeling down or not motivated on a given day. It's a much more effective motivator if I sit down and remember how much I love to create something that I enjoy, that you know, that really makes me happy in my soul. And so then if I can imagine that feeling of happiness, I can act on that. Like that's much more of a personal thing. Wolves in sweaters? Yes. I don't know how we got onto wolves in sweaters, but I'll run with it. I'll run with it. Just imagining a wolf in a pretty, you know, argyle pattern. That needs to be a thing. Maybe that's already a meme and I don't know it. So I'm going to put this this color a little bit over the top of my black and brown, kind of assess how I feel about it. You can see that highlight start going in. I think I'm at the right value to be an effective highlight. I'm going to keep some of my shadows, so I've got a little highlight here where the knob is going to pick up the light, and then I'm going to have a shadow under it, and then we're going to blend back up. I do need to add just a little more water to it. I don't want to add too much, though, or I'm not going to be able to see my highlight. Nico. I did. I put a wolf in tartan. Two of our wolfen have tartans actually that I did. But that's because the person who created them, Matt Reagan, really loved his Scottish part of his Scottish roots, and he wanted them to be Scottish wolfen. So that's why I did the tartan. Also, I mean, come on, the one model has a bagpipe, so how are you not going to paint that model in tartan? A giant werewolf with a bagpipe. You're totally going to. So if I come to a point where I cannot blend this, I'm going to just grab a little bit of my black and brown and just kind of wet blend the transition. If I was doing this for competition, I'd spend my time and layer it. But because it's on stream, I tend to go a little bit faster. Put down a little bit of that wet paint. Grab some of the other wet paint and do a blend. Oh, I see. We have wolves in California down south now. Apparently there's a pack that came into the lower Sierras. Hey, Roger. So we're just going to start highlighting all of these little winglets. And this is why, you can see where I've been highlighting along the outside here. And this is why I hate wings and why I do the wings first. Because they're so very tedious. All the little struts, all the little things to do. And it's, at least these wings are folded so I don't have a huge like blank expanse to figure out how to fill. Hello, Richard. We're doing fine. We're doing fine. I may have thinned my paint a little bit much, but we're gonna see. So on these really thin ones, I probably won't even highlight except the little knob like right at the end of this long strut, because if I start throwing up a highlight onto that really thin area, we're essentially going to lose that line. It's just going to get closer and closer to the shadows of the skin here, and then it's going to blend together. And we want to be able to see these struts. So I'm going to just kind of like put a little bit of a line leading down to this knob, and then I'm going to highlight further down on the wings. So you can see just those little bitty highlights. Twisted Oma, my dad uses headphones. He's hard of hearing, but he hates hearing aids, and he's learned that instead of turning up the television to high decibels, it actually works better for him to do a pair of headphones to bring the sound closer to his ear. Maybe that'd work for you while you're recovering from your sickness. Alrighty. Oh, wing struts. Woof. I will put one more highlight on these too, eventually. So what I'm really doing further down on the struts is I'm using my black and brown as a liner, and I'm kind of highlighting down the center. Like I said, we don't want to go too high with our highlights on these or we're going to start getting too close to the skin tone, but... Yep, over the ear. Yep. Yeah, my dad uses the big noise blockers. Alrighty. Somewhere out there, James Gurney just got a sad because of you guys talking about cooking a Triceratops. Considering they're the friendly dinos in his books. Oh dear. Cognitive stuff is weird. That's what IBS is, I found out. It's actually a brainstem gut issue. Like brainstem gut axis. It's actually your brain freaking, it's actually your gut freaking out about something and making your brain freak out about it, and that produces symptoms, which is just so weird. So weird! Brains are weird, guys. Just saying. Brains are so weird. Yeah, I didn't know that until I got a diet book on IBS, and it actually broke that down for me. A lot of like web information out there is just like not complete. Surprise there, right? But yeah, it's actually and that's why everybody has like different symptoms and stuff. And but yeah, I'm slowly learning which FODMAPs, which oligosaccharides, and which saccharides I am most reactive to. So, all right, so we've got our basic highlight on this. You can see though we have a lot more contrast over here, right? And as I highlight over here, we start losing some of that contrast, and that'd be the problem. So I'm going to grab one final. I'm going to do one final highlight. If I need to, I can glaze with my black and brown to bring these back down, but then I might have to rehighlight, and I can just go back and forth. So we'll get some of our driftwood brown. I really like the color that russet brown makes when you mix it with driftwood. It makes a very soft kind of neutral brown that's similar to shield brown. A little bit, but you can like make gradations of it, right? Because you can make some russet with just a tiny bit of driftwood in it, and then the opposite, or a 50-50 mix, and it lets you tune it. I want to leave the driftwood a little bit stronger because it tends to be a little translucent. So I'm doing a 4:1 just to start out because I just want to use touches of it. Alrighty. I am using my old brush, the skinny brush, for these really tiny areas. I'm just going to put this last little highlight kind of where the bones are meeting on the wing. I might do it down at the very end as well. A little bit at the very bottom of the strut. Bring those out a little bit more. Oh, I wanted to say another thing. If you find that you're discouraged from painting when you see somebody else's really good model, avoid Instagram, avoid looking. Like, if that's going to be a thing, and you can take the wind out of your own sails by comparisonitis, it's best just not to compare. It's best to just paint in isolation, and when you're done with the model, then you can let yourself look at pretties for a while. And then you can stop looking at pretties when it's time to paint again. But it could be most effective just to limit your exposure to that stuff if that's the problem, or one of the big problems. We seldom just have one problem. There's usually more than one thing holding us back when we get stuck. Because we're complicated. So I'm going to put in a little bit of this lighter color. A lot of this is going to be hidden behind the model, But I paint it anyway because I just, you never know. You can see some of it. So I want it to be, definitely want it to be, where it does stick out, I want to be able to see details. Oh, I missed a spot. I missed another spot. Dang. See those spots? It's terrible. That's what happens when you paint one side and then the other. Watching David paint his Skaven is totally making me want to paint my GW model, though. I never played sports. I tried basketball 1 year in high school, but I was short and not very good at running, so that petered out quick. It's the only sport I'm that interested in anyway. And again, we're going to have a claw in here, but I'm not there yet. Yeah. If I have to paint something that I know a friend is painting, I just go as far from their color scheme as I can. Oh, there's an Age of Sigmar one that I wanna maybe work on, Pendrake. It's I don't want to talk about it actually. It's interesting. So maybe you guys have heard this, but it's a Stephen King thing. So Stephen King advises writers not to talk about their creative projects to other people before they're done. Because what he found is that for himself, he loses, like, talking about what he's writing actually kills the urge to work on it. Because it satisfies, somehow communicating the idea satisfies the urge to bring the thing into existence. And I have found that this, for me, this is true. I know it's not true for some of my friends, but if I talk too much about what I'm doing, I will lose the urge to actually create it. And so I'm not going to talk about the GW model that I might want to paint, because I find that that is true for painting for me as well. So maybe, if that's, maybe look at if that's true for you, because it can be a thing. If it's not true for you, if talking to other people about your model gets you excited to paint it and you immediately sit down and work on it, that's different. There are definitely those people too. But for me, if I talk about a project that, especially a project that I have to go all out on, it's less so if I'm working on just a fun project, or just something for my stream or something that I'm like, oh, I'll enter that in a competition, but I'm not like, like balls to the wall about it. But for Golden Demon, I have to have a lot of motivation stocked up for that. Like a lot. In order to give it everything. And I have found that talking about it more, like talking about it specifically, can drain that. So I can mention that I'm excited to work on it. But that's about as far as I can go. At least until I'm like, have a lot of work done on it. Change what it intended the outcome to be. No, I'm not so much Slayer on that one. Even, and this is something I've heard George R.R. Martin talk about as well. When you're a writer, like, and I guess it takes, but you're so much like less likely. You're not very likely to change your story based on what other people have said. Not if you have a strong sense of yourself and you're, as a writer, and of the story that you want to tell. I know, I could talk about the new book for ages, and it wouldn't matter what anybody else said about, like, ideas for the story. I'd probably shut it down pretty quick, because it's fraught, when people start suggesting how you tell your story. But I wouldn't be tempted to change it. Like, the story is the story. It's the story I want to tell. And anybody else has ideas, they can go write their own book. So it doesn't change it for Germ. He's very solid in what he wants to do, and I am similar in that respect. Yes, even thinking about it for a month when the story was done for him. Yep. That's another. It's a kind of a slightly different version of that same kind of thing. Yep. And that can be just a boredom thing. Like, your brain is like, oh, well, now I've done all I'm going to do on this, and then so I'm moving on to the next thing, right? But it can also just be that it drains your energy, and you don't have any more energy for that thing. Then you've used it all. Yeah, you're not excited about the original idea anymore. Yep. And that's very with a lot of us. A lot of us have that brain pattern going on where it's got to be fun and fresh and new and exciting, and that's where the evil execution thing of not finishing comes in, because your brain can get bored with it, and if you don't have the tools to work around that, then you could just stall out and not finish anything. And a lot of the time this springs from an idea that we have that it should always be easy. Like that, oh, it's our hobby and we love doing it, so it should always be effortless. We're looking for that rush, right? That rush of happy, creative, joy, oh yay, excitement. But that's not the everyday. That's the rare. But something in our heads is very unrealistic, and it says that should be every day, and if it's not, then maybe something's wrong and we shouldn't create, right? But that's not the case at all. That's just our brain trying to reach for, the easiest way to do something. That's why I talk a lot about forming a painting habit and doing things like distracting yourself with podcasts or something else like that. Anything that will just give your brain some candy to chew on so that you can get crap done. Because sometimes you really want to finish something. Sometimes you get a lot of oomph from finishing. And so to let your brain derail you like that, it's not like... At this point, brain science has gone far enough to prove that we really are a collection of voices in our head, and that different parts of our brain essentially have different voices, and that our consciousness is just an amalgam of all those things. So really, the part of you that's bored is just one small part of your brain. And you should kind of tell it to go over in a corner and listen to this nice podcast while you get things done. Bye, Shadow Raven. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. I hear that a lot, is that people really that's why a lot of people always liked Eldar Craft World, right? Every unit could be different, and so it was never a boring slog, unlike Empire. My Wood Elves I painted in different units and different seasonal schemes to get away from painting the same thing all the time. So we're bringing out some of this. Yes, the more you actually just paint, the less the negative voices have power. Because the rush and the happiness that we get from actually executing overpowers those negative voices. Because we remember then that painting makes us happy. And that happiness means that, the bad stuff just, takes a step back. That's the great thing about painting, right? It can take us beyond the negative emotions. It can give us a refuge from them. It enables us to control a part of our lives and to finish things, whereas our real life might be full of things that we never get to finish. Yeah. 85%. Yes, that's enough. Oh yeah, Sylvaneth are cool. That's why we go back to what I was saying about having a personal why. Like, why do you paint? I'll talk more. Again, this is all stuff that I talk a lot about in the PDF. So if you guys are patrons, then you get it all. It'll all hit you this afternoon probably. I just have a little bit more editing to do on it. It's all text. I guess I should dig out a picture of a mini just to illustrate it, but maybe I don't wanna. We can just make it a meaty, wordy PDF. So one thing, if I notice that this looks a bit blocky, and it's not very blendy, which is the case, is I can go back and glaze with this black and brown. I probably will, just to blend it in a little bit, but I'll wait until I have everything set before I do that. Yeah, and with that kind of thing, I don't know if I would ever paint an entire army like that, Richard. Or if I did, I would have to take breaks between units and work on different projects. Because my brain is definitely one of those things that will get bored. So I would have to give it some nice candy breaks of painting other things in between units. Maybe even in between every 5 models. I don't know. I missed a spot down there too. Yep. Oh, everybody does. Like, this is the thing. Again, it's like every human in the world wants everything to be effortless. We have this expectation that especially our hobbies should always be effortless. But it's not really motivation. Like, that's the problem. The problem is execution. And when we fail to execute, our motivation is the one that takes the hit. So we feel like it's a motivation problem. That, we don't want to paint, or, something is getting in the way of that. And it's usually because we've got a disconnect between the motivation and the execution. And the way around that is to do some thinking and figure out like what the most rewarding part of painting is for you. Your why you paint. And that's your motivator right there. That is. And it's a very personal thing. And it can have different facets to it. Yeah, palette cleanser models are important. David does like board game minis when he wants to just escape. Not really. They're too boring, Pendrake. I like armies with lots of monsters. That's why I like Tyranids. I'm waiting to see what they do with my Wood Elves. If they come out with some new models for Wood Elves that are nice, I might be convinced to pick up more Wood Elves like in the olden days. But yeah, I used to have a very small Chaos army for the same reason. I like creatures. I don't like a lot of dudes. Yeah, but I don't want to do that for an army. So that's the thing. That's the thing, Pendrake. There's a big difference between painting an army and painting a model, right? And although my superpower is freehand, that means my superpower is something that's functioning at a top level. And I won't paint an army to top level. It would take me decades. I'd never get through it. I mean, I've tried. I've already tried that. It doesn't work. It just isn't. It isn't what I want to do. So, just because you have a superpower doesn't mean that you should look at that superpower with your army painting, because army painting is a different beast. Army painting is more like the painting that David does, where he just paints something to a level that he's happy with, but not to a level that he's like super proud of. There's a difference there. He just wants to be happy with it so he can put it on the table, right? Like he has some Privateer Press minis because he used to play War Machine. And they're painted to a decent standard. But they're not even close to what he can do. Yeah. And when I have painted armies, I've very much painted to a lower standard than you guys are used to seeing from me. Because it's practical. You have to paint 100 models or more. For fantasy, anyway. 40K is less. Sometimes. But yeah, so I don't care what my superpower is when I'm painting an army. It's totally non-applicable in my mind. Just getting these highlights, and you can see that it's very blocky. You can see my brush strokes. That's where maybe I would take in some black and brown and glaze over the end. Now the problem with the black and brown is that it's very high coverage. So sometimes it might be too much, but that's where a general glaze is probably where we're going to go. But we're going to finish mapping this out first. Now part of the problem here is that I went very light, like because I wanted to make progress because I didn't want to be working on these wings forever. So that meant that my distance between my base and my next highlight up is pretty far. And that's why we're getting very blocky highlights here. $100 mini mark, nice. Yeah, you paint fast. Yes, you're supposed to be happy with your paint jobs, you silly Cornico. Quindy. Yeah, army standard, right? Base coat, wash, little bit of pop of detail done. Like, it's just a different mindset. And the challenge for me, because I do like a well-painted figure, is to figure out how I can use faster techniques in such a way that I still like the result, right? For me, that usually means a lot of wet blending. I like wet blending, it still demands some skill, and it looks good. And it gives me that basic blend that I like to see, right? And I like it better than like my Fast Faces thing where we did for this elf, where we did very quick, easy techniques, the base coat, the wash, the secondary layer, and then, you know, just a quick spot eyeball. Like, but I might be okay with that elf I just showed you. I might be okay with that in an army. If I was doing a unit of war dancers, sure, I'll do that. That's enough. If I might tighten them up a little bit, you know, if I have the time. Yeah, I don't own, I didn't invest in a lot of the contrast paints, Corvus. I just invested in a couple just to play with. But I can do the same thing with a heavy wash. I mean, you can create your own contrast paint. Not quite as, like, solid as some of their colors are, but you can essentially get the same result through putting a heavy wash over Zenith. And I don't have to spend hundreds of dollars on contrast paint. Yeah, my paint has gotten too thick. One thing I can do is take a little bit of black and brown and mix it into my highlight mixture. Do that. But yeah, contrast paint was a game changer for a lot of people, and I'm happy GW made it because it takes puts a lot more easy into it. You don't have to mix that kind of thing. It's totally valid. You can get some great results with it. But just like my paint line video that I put up on the YouTubes, you know, there's the thingy is that you're going to pay for it, right? You're going to buy all those paints so that you can do what you want to do. Although if you're doing a specific army, you probably only need a few. So I did a little bit of glaze over that, and then I'm bringing it back slightly darker. That makes sense, Crows. I mean, that's fine. Essentially, everything is fair in army painting. Because you just want to get the things done. And everybody's got a different standard that they're happy with, right? That's why I didn't get people being all up in arms about the whole slap chop thing. It's like, it's not like we're saying that everybody has to do that. Or that it might be the way to paint armies for everybody. It's just the way that that person, like, thinks they can get decent enough results in a good time frame. I always get very amused when the painting community gets up in arms. Just like I get very amused at traditional artists who get up in arms. It's like, dudes, is it really that serious? Now, if anybody tries to take away my Kalinsky brushes, then you'll see me get up in arms. So we're getting some highlights here. We're almost at the end of stream. Let's take a look. So actually, when you get away from it, when you take it just a little step away, it looks pretty decent. Really shiny. Oh, that's a bummer, Kernico. Or they messed up a batch. Because that happens. Sometimes a batch just gets messed up. Especially if you don't have a QC. Like, at least when I was at Reaper, part of the process was that after you mix the paint and match the color, you would put a swatch down on, you know, one of the dragon wings I kept around for that reason. So that you could see the finish and make sure that the finish was right and adjust it if you had to. But if you don't do that, then it's very likely at some point that you're going to produce a batch where you just kind of forgot to add the flattening agent because somebody came to talk to you and you got totally distracted. Yeah, that's fine, Richard. I mean, if nothing else, you can always just liquidate. The nice thing about painting Games Workshop armies, or yeah, I assume even historical armies, is that once they're painted, you know, if you want to sell them and get some cash back and do another army, you can. I actually knew a guy who did that. He would paint display armies for our GW store, and they'd give him store credit, so he would just turn in the army because he just loved to paint, and he would turn in the army to the store, and then he'd use his store credit to pick up another army, and he'd start again. Because he was fast and he just loved painting. And he was happy to do it for store credit. I liked that guy. He was fun. He was a good guy. And he was totally happy with his hobby. Like that's he was happy to be of use, and he was happy to always have something new to paint, and he never really had to actually pay real money for it except for the first ones he bought. So if you're out there, guy, thumbs up. I approve of that. So just got another little highlight. So you can see I'm leaving some shadows right around the struts. I'm going to tighten those up a little bit by bringing in the color more toward the center so I have more of a shadow / lining. Don't want to leave a lot of really big spaces, but I do want the struts to be evident. But we'll work on it. I knew we weren't going to get these wings done in one session anyway. Oh yeah. Yeah, it's always an option. Oh yeah, the 5th edition. That's when I got in, I think, was 4th or 5th. If it was the Lizardman and... Was it Lizardman and what else? When they came out with the Lizardman army. That was when I got in. But yeah, for sure. Like then, and that's the nice thing about Games Workshop is, you know, the world would like have to have some severe differences come through for the stuff you're painting to not be worth something to someone. So you can always like, it's always kind of an investment. If you need to liquidate, you can. All right, guys, I think we're pretty good. You can see where I'm going with it on both sides now. we'll play around a little bit more. We'll be smoothing a lot when I get to that point, but that's about where I want it. And yeah, we're just gonna keep working with it until we like what we see. And I almost certainly will bring up the skin tone here one more step. Although maybe not on the wings, depending, again, it's the lighting. The wings are folded and they're largely in shadow, like you can see, because they're tilted. The way that they attach to her back, they're actually kind of tilted forward, and they're flaring out behind. And that means that the underside of the wings really don't take a lot of highlight. So we might have to not highlight. And that means I'll just put another highlight on the skin. Yeah. Sure, guys, this was a fun one. Thanks for hanging out with Sophie and me and chatting about all of the stuff. Always fun. Oh, yawn. Stretch! Oh, yeah, did you take your allergy meds, Quindy? I didn't need them today. It's all sunny out here. Still not going to be terribly warm, but at least it's sunny. But yeah, I hope you all have a great rest of your day. I'm going to be working hard on my Patreon stuff since I lost some days there at the end of the month. Yeah, yay for Moonlight Minis for sending me pretty minis. At least I'm always needed, Quindy. Yes. Thanks, everybody. I hope you have a lovely day. I will be back tomorrow with oh man, we finished Vampire Barbarian. You know what that? Oh, we almost did. We didn't finish his rear of his base. So okay, so we're gonna do that. Maybe I think we're gonna have to start on B. Tomorrow will be B. We'll finish Barbarian base and we'll start on B. How about that? B-Barian. We're doing B-Barian tomorrow. That's what we're doing. Okie dokie. Alrighty. I will see you guys then. Alright. Have a great one. Bye-bye.